Hi everyone and welcome along to today's YouTube tutorial. We're going to do a very sweet and simple little poppy for Remembrance because Remembrance Sunday is coming up in the UK and we use the poppy as our symbol for remembrance, so it's a lovely one to paint in November. However, that's not all today because we have got such a special announcement for you. So Ant and I have been working on a secret little project for months now. It's taken so much research, so much time, lots of painting, lots of filming, and Ant will tell you a lot of editing. Also, we can present you with our very own paint your own calendar. Now, not to be confused with the Advent calendar, this is for 2025 a calendar that takes you throughout the year, and for every month we have a lovely flower painting tutorial for you. So what are you going to receive when you order the calendar? Well, you're going to obviously get what looks like quite a plain calendar. It's a blank paint your own calendar with all the grids for the months for 2025 printed on gorgeous 300-gram Tintoretto Gesso paper, which is what we use for the Advent calendar, so I love painting on it. And you're also going to get a little flyer with a QR code and a link that sends you to a private YouTube playlist with a really beautiful in-depth tutorial with me painting a seasonal flower arrangement, one for every month of the year. And so that your calendar doesn't look all sad on the front, a very special bonus tutorial for that front cover. So you can even make it look amazing on the front. And the tutorials are all ready and waiting for you right now. We have got them all the way through January through to December. So you can either choose to paint them I don't know, some people want to paint them all at once so they can give the calendar as a gift to someone else, or treat it as this amazing creative inspiration throughout the year where January comes, you paint your tutorial, February comes, you paint your tutorial. It's completely up to you. Once you've bought the calendar, you get the link, you can go to that private YouTube playlist and the tutorials are there all year round for you, and to be honest, we're not going to be getting rid of them even after 2025. We want you to be able to have access to those tutorials indefinitely. So the important thing to know is we launched this calendar last week for my patrons and my newsletter members. If you want to sign up to the newsletter, just go to dewintonpaperco.com and the pop-up will be there and you can sign up very easily. But they loved it. We have only got half our stock left. We did a very limited edition for this. We started with 200, we're now down to 100. So if you would love one of these paint your own calendars, I got to be honest with you, there aren't that many left. So please, please head to Etsy and get your calendar now. So let's head to the desk and do a little bit of painting, just because a lot of people ask me, well, what kind of standard painter do I need to be to do this kind of calendar? Well, this lovely little poppy tutorial is going to give you a really good sense of the kind of standard of painter you need to be, i.e. the kind of painting we do every tutorial on YouTube. You'll know if you paint with me, oops, there's my phone. Sorry. You'll know if you paint with me that the way I teach is a really, really sort of beginner friendly. We go along together and do it, and you're always amazed by what you can paint by the end. So don't be intimidated by the finished product. Focus on the process, enjoy it, and you'll be amazed at what you can create. So grab your paints and let's get started. Here is the calendar that you receive. Here's March. It's got obviously all of the pages printed on. What I've done is I've sort of varied it a little bit. Sometimes we have the grid at the top with space underneath for the tutorial, and other times the grid's at the bottom. It's just a really nice way of mixing things up. But this paper is Tintoretto Gesso 300 GSM. It is the same paper we do the Advent calendar on, and it is exactly the same paper. I mean, I'm working on this exact calendar when I do the tutorials for you on the private YouTube playlist that you get when you receive this. So how do you access that YouTube playlist? Well, what happens is you also get a handy little flyer that arrives, and on the back of it, I'll just turn it over there. So it's a QR code and a link that takes you straight to that private playlist. And as well as that, it just shows you that each tutorial lists the brushes and colours that I used in the episode notes just underneath the video, just as you would when you're looking at one of my regular YouTube tutorials. You just head to the comments, or not the comments, the episode notes below, and it has all the information you need. So therefore you get 12 months worth of beautiful flower painting tutorials with one bonus episode for the front cover, because we couldn't leave that empty, could we now? Now, the most pertinent question I get asked, because we have launched this with our patrons and our newsletter guests, because they get wonderful early access. And of course, if you would love to sign up, you can get those kinds of perks. We've already sold half of our stock of these calendars, and so I'm so excited to be able to offer you the remaining calendars. But one of the big questions is, well, what kind of level of painting do I need to have to be able to do these tutorials? And I thought, well, why don't we today do an example kind of tutorial of a nice flower in a vase, just so you can see how you get on with it, and that will be a really helpful sort of guide as to how you'll get on with the calendar tutorials. So you can find this in my Etsy shop. It's just in my Etsy shop. We ship all around the world. We have 100 left, and I'd love one of them to be yours. The poppy is the symbol of remembrance, which is coming up in November, so that feels like the perfect flower to paint. So you're getting a cheeky little tutorial in with my general video about the calendar. So as with the calendar tutorials, you will get a little guide from me, sort of teaching you how to do the line drawing. I don't do sort of PDF downloadable line drawings ever, but what I do always say to you is you can pause the video, do a screen grab of the pencil drawing, and then download that printed off, do whatever you need to do with it. But that's how I do things. So we're just going to take a stem for a poppy, and then I'm going to do one for one of the seed heads, and I'm going to do a sort of oval shape here for the seed head itself, and then I'm going to draw in a little sort of bud vase. It was great on my French painting retreat that we've just come back from, which you'll be hearing more about later in the week. We had a whole morning where we focused on painting glass vases, and it was so useful. I think my stomach just rumbled, I do apologise. Right, so that's the kind of pencil guide you'll be getting. And then we just need to crack on with the painting. So I'm going to get a few brushes in, and we've got some lovely cadmium red here, all nicely woken up, and that is going to be a great colour for our field poppy. We do actually have a field poppy tutorial in my third book, A Year of Watercolour, the orange book. A lovely summer wildflower, the field poppy. So I've got a size 4 brush, which I think will be good for this kind of sized flower. And I'm going to get started. So I'm using quite a sort of strong, I'd say sort of a milk consistency red for my poppies, and then I'm going to do 2 larger petals, just sort of scribbling them in a little bit, so really scribble, but always anchoring it down into the middle there, and just leaving that centre free. And with those petals, particularly the two at the back that we're going to see, we are going to see that there's that slightly sort of dark interior on the petals. So I've got a bit of moon glow here. I'm just going to dab a little bit of that. That looks fun, doesn't it? So we just need to leave that to dry. Whilst we're waiting, we can do some of the stems. So I've got some green gold here and some sap green. And I'm going to do the stem of just the seed head here. So I've got a size 0 brush and just going to travel that stem down into the neck of the vase, go no further. And then I'm going to just start to create this little seed head here. So sort of teardrop that doesn't reach a point at the top. And that's pretty nice. And actually I think a bit of cadmium yellow just in the base of it there will be really nice. I can get the base of the stem in there of the other one, but I don't want to go too close to that red petal because it might just bleed a little bit. So that's now dried, and you can see how the colours do lighten quite a bit as they dry. I'm now going to take some more cadmium red, and I'm just mixing it. It's maybe just a tiny bit more dilute this time, just a little more. And with my size 4 brush, I'm going to paint in some more petals. So I'm going to just sort of place a glaze in, really, of petals. And I will pop one in just in the top there as well. So for these ones, I will also just get a very small amount of moon glow. That's looking nice. And whilst we wait for that to dry, we can do a little bit, I'll just get some deep sap green, a little bit of texture and sort of depth on the stem. So I can just use it sort of partly as a bit of a shadow low light, just getting it in underneath the flower there. But also just a little bit of texture, so coming down around the sides, see how they're angling down, and then maybe just a little bit onto the body of the seed. But now I'm going to clean my brush off and just sort of soften that all in. Blend it in a fraction. Okay, so we now can just let our flower dry at the top, and we can start to come down and think about the vase. So for the vase, we need some glassy tones. So I've always found cobalt turquoise to be a really useful colour, as well as Payne's grey and moon glow. They're all really, really fantastic colours for this. So I'm going to just, don't worry, that green stain in my palette, I don't know why I can't get rid of that, but it's not there. If you see what I mean, it's not actually there for the colours, so hopefully you can just ignore it. Might have to get myself a new palette for filming, you never know. Okay, so we've got cobalt turquoise, bit of Payne's grey, and of course moon glow. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to establish the sort of the shape of the vase using some Payne's grey, and I've still got my size 4 brush. That seems to work all right, and I'm just going to come down one side using sort of the belly of my brush, so there'll be points where it can be quite a thick line, and then on the other side, just as the way it is, you tend to use more of the point of your brush on the other side. Now of course your largely right-handed. I know I've got my left-handers as well in the audience, but most people are right-handed, so you might want to do this in the opposite way, like just start on one side and come into the other. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a bit of a base there, a bit of a base curve. But the whole time I'm doing it quite watery. I'm doing it in an imperfect way as well. I'm not being all precise because I always paint in an expressive way rather than a photographically accurate way. So this is how I sort of convey the sense of the glass. And then up around the top, I'm going to sort of create a bit of a sort of dark, sort of almost like brackets, parentheses kind of things at the side. I bring it round a bit, but I'm not going to do too much else at this point. Now a bit of turquoise in there as well. It's always a good colour. So I'm now just sort of being a little bit more erratic with placing in a few just sort of shards of colour, but it's still quite tea consistency. It's quite dilute. I'm using a smaller brush, which just means I've got more control, more precision. So I am going to find a waterline, and you'll see that when it hits the wet, it feathers out, but when it hits the dry, it goes much more crisp. And that's one of the things I love about painting water like this, is you're using the wetness of the watercolour to sort of convey water, which I think is great fun. And then what I'm going to do is just soften underneath that line and just drag it down a bit, which leaves a really nice sort of clear pool at the top. But you sort of sense that there's water underneath. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to build up these layers. I haven't used Moonglow yet. I might pop in a bit now, but much more concentrated colour. The vase is still drying, but if I look sort of, it's usually around the base that you see these really sort of deeper shadowy bits. You might even have a bit of texture around the bottom, but again I'm just being really sparing with it. And then I find along the rim you get some real dark sort of edges just sort of around the side like that, and we may find we come back for more. The other thing is I sometimes like to just create a slight edge of the glass like that as well. Anyway, that's looking really nice, and now we can place in the stems. So I find that usually the stem almost disappears entirely when it's coming through the rim there, but then once it's coming down in, I place it in. And notice how I've stopped it sort of halfway down into the oval. I'm going to get a bit more colour on it, a bit of sap green. We're now in the vase, and of course this is a smooth glass, so there's no texture on it. There's no need to sort of warp things too much here. But of course when it hits the water, it's going to refract. The image of it is strange. So what I like to do, and this was a really fun trick we all enjoyed trying on the French trip, was I actually wet the water. The water bit gets wet. And then I can paint in my stems in this quite stylized way. Now I've got the continual line here of the stem, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to warp it a little bit, and suddenly we've got very much a sense of above and below water. But I'm going to take my sap green. So the underneath is wet enough that it's gone lovely and warped, but it hasn't been so sopping wet that the stems have lost all sense of their straightness. So now I can play around a little bit with the water top. So I'm going to take a very little bit of Payne's grey, and I'm going to just create some little ripples, some little bits of darkness, maybe a slightly stronger bit of Payne's grey. And just have a little bit of fun with the water and just see what you can achieve. I think that looks really fun. Yeah, I think that looks rather nice, and we can head back up to the top and finish off our poppy. So in the middle of the poppy, I mean, it depends, the center of the poppy changes quite wildly depending on the time of which you're painting it. But if I begin with a bit of green gold in the middle there, and then we can build up and create the sort of the black seeds, I'm going to take some alizarin crimson. Let's get that a bit stronger. And I'm going to use my size 0 brush, I think, to scribble. Maybe I'll get a bit of red in there as well with it. Yeah, that's nice. So it's not too different. I'm going to scribble some detail onto it there. So keep in mind all the time, if this feels okay to you in terms of you're enjoying it, following along, this is exactly the kind of thing we're going to be painting in the Botanical Paint Your Own calendar. And the great thing is you have those tutorials for the whole year and beyond, like they're not going anywhere. You can pause me, you can mute me, you can repeat me. That's the great thing, isn't it? You can just keep watching, keep trying. You could practice on some separate paper first if you wanted. What I've also heard is some people are going to get all of these painted before New Year and give it as a gift to someone else. How amazing is that? But, you know, the lovely thing about it is you can really make of it whatever you like. And I'm so looking forward to seeing your finished paintings. So do go to the website, because I can't stress enough, we did a very limited edition run of this because we just really wanted to make sure that it was something people wanted, and it's been amazing, the response so far, but we've sold half our stock already. So maybe even pause the video, head over, place an order, get it done, and come back and you can see the last bit of this. So I took that time to also rub out the pencil on the lower piece there, and now what I can do is start to look at the center of the flower. So I'm going to take some Moon Glow and just paint in a little sort of starburst on the middle here, and you can see by doing that it gives it quite a 3D feel. And then I can just take some of my black. I have ivory black, but I'm sure you can use an equivalent. I'm going to just place in lots of dots for the seeds. That's actually going to sort of come up over the front of that centre there, because it's on a bit of a 3/4 angle. And then I'll get a really tiny weeny brush. I'll get my 4/10. And I'm just going to, oh, that's not a fine line at all. You know what? I'm going to get another one. That's a really pertinent point. I've used the word pertinent twice today and I'd never normally use it. If your brushes start to struggle to make a fine point, then it's time to replace them. So that happens to all of us, happens to me. I'll be replacing that 4/10 straight after the video. And you can just head to my Etsy shop or wintonpaperco.com and get yourself some replacements. They're great brushes, but they don't last forever. So there is a lovely little flower in a vase in the style of the kind of thing that we are doing in the Botanical Calendar. I'll just do a little sweep of shadow. There you go. Now I have one last surprise for you. Now, if you really enjoyed painting this, but either feel that it may be a little bit beyond you, or you go, Harriet, I don't really want to spend my whole year painting flower tutorials, I'd rather you did it. Well, you're in luck, because we are also selling one printed with all of my paintings. So do you want to have a sneaky peek, which of course in turn is going to show you just a few of the flower paintings that we are going to be doing in this calendar. So I'm just going to show you 1 or 2 months, nothing too much, but of course we also do a front page tutorial, so that's that one. And here we have January, and the lovely thing in the printed calendar is I also have a little printed list of all the flowers, the names of all the flowers. In the tutorials, we have the names of the flowers listed in the episode notes below each tutorial. And the other lovely thing is in the tutorials, I sort of suggest painting in the Saturday, Sunday grid colour, just with a little colour to make it stand out a little bit more. But you can see it's that similar kind of style. It's a lovely sort of realistic but quite a soft and gentle approach. Each tutorial takes sort of film time anything between 25 to 35 minutes, but of course you can go at your own pace, and that is the beauty of it. And of course you can always buy yourself one. Let me get another one. Here we are. Here's March. You can buy yourself one that has the ready printed tutorials on it. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed our little tutorial for remembrance, and head over to Etsy right now and get a calendar for yourself, maybe one for a friend. What a lovely Christmas present it might be, either the paint your own or the printed versions. I'll see you again next time. Bye!